The morning Lydia Caro called the cops on me for illegally fishing her lake was the moment I realized I wasn't just fighting for a hobby. I was fighting for my sanity, my wife's memory, and, as it turned out, an entire 40-acre stretch of water I didn't even know I owned. I'm Caleb Mercer, widower, carpenter, and professional mind-my-own-business guy. And for 23 years my life at Cedar Hollow Lake was simple. A 2-acre slice of land my grandfather left me. A cabin I built with my own hands after Emily died of cancer at 48, and a dawn ritual that kept my grief from drowning me. Coffee steaming in the cold air, boots crunching on gravel, mist curling off the water like ghosts. One man and a fishing rod talking to the universe in silence. Then the McMansions came, glass and stone shoved into old pines, and with them came Lydia Caro, fresh out of a divorce, rolling up in a white BMW with a blessed vanity plate and the kind of helmet hair that looked like it had its own personal security detail. 6 months after moving into her $800,000 showpiece, she called a concerned homeowners meeting and tried to turn our sleepy community into a spreadsheet. She had charts, slides, color-coded bullet points about liability, aesthetics, optimizing lakefront assets. She invented the Cedar Hollow Shores Association, slapped the word mandatory on it, and announced that the lake was now a shared amenity, requiring $200 a month from every household. She got 8 newcomers to sign on. The rest of us got thick envelopes full of legalese and thinly veiled threats. I called her, as polite as my mama raised me. "Ma'am, I'm not joining your HOA." Her voice turned to ice. "It's not a choice, Mr. Mercer. This is about protecting everyone's investment." "I don't have an investment," I said, staring at the water where Emily's ashes are scattered. "I have a home." 2 weeks later, shiny laminated signs popped up around the shoreline. Private HOA property. Members only. Like plastic tumors on something beautiful. I kept fishing anyway. That's when she upgraded from signs to sirens. I was on my usual rock at sunrise when I heard tires on gravel and a voice I've known since high school. Deputy Hank Lawson climbed out of his cruiser, hat in hand, looking like a man who'd rather wrestle a bear than do what he was about to do. "Caleb, I got a trespassing complaint from Lydia. Protocol says I gotta ask you to pack it up." Behind him, on her deck, Lydia stood in pastel and pearls, arms crossed, smiling like she'd just beaten the final boss in some HOA video game. I closed my tackle box, that sharp snap echoing over the still water, and something inside me clicked with it. You picked the wrong old fisherman, I thought. That same week, violation notices started landing like artillery on the problem houses. Betty Harper fined for unapproved garden gnomes that had been in her yard since the Carter administration. The Alvarez family hit for an unregistered fishing boat. Old Man Dugan cited over his vegetable garden. The Whitfields threatened over a dock that existed long before Lydia's BMW. Betty showed up at my porch with a letter shaking in her hands. "Caleb, I don't understand a word of this, but they want $50 a day until I take my husband's gnomes down." Right then, the grief, the anger, the absurdity all folded into one clear thought. Bullies use paperwork now. Fine. I can read. The Redwood County Courthouse is an old brick cube that smells like dust, coffee, and regret, and buried inside it is a woman who knows more about land than any realtor ever will. Karen Doyle in Land Records. I slid Lydia's HOA filing across the counter. She pushed her glasses up, squinted, and snorted. "Son, this paperwork's messier than a soup sandwich," she said, flipping pages. "No proper boundary description, no real authority recorded. And for the record, an HOA can't just claim a lake by printing signs." She walked me through words I'd never cared about before: adverse possession, riparian rights, recorded covenants. Then she pulled my grandfather's old deed from the archives like it was a relic. "You might want to look into this line here," she said, tapping a faded paragraph about mineral and water rights. While I was learning Law 101, Lydia was playing dictator. She hired some poor kid as private security to stand at the boat launch and photograph anyone daring to breathe near the shoreline. I asked him, calm as Sunday morning, "Son, what law are you enforcing?" He shifted, muttered something about the HOA, and lasted exactly 3 days before quitting. Next came a cease and desist letter from some HOA lawyer in town, full of forthwith and pursuant to. He demanded fees, threatened court, and treated my dawn fishing like organized crime. I laughed, folded it, and stuck it in my shirt pocket. Because by then, I'd hired Logan Price, a surveyor, to walk my property. After a morning of measuring, he frowned at his instruments. "Caleb, your line doesn't stop at the shore. Your lot pushes 30 feet into the lake. And I've seen old references to mining claims out here. You might own more than you think." That night, an anonymous note appeared in my mailbox. Expensive paper, careful handwriting. "Check Granite Ridge Mining Company records at the State Archive." So I did. I drove to the state capitol, spent days in a fluorescent crypt of file boxes and microfilm, chasing my grandfather's ghost through corporate paperwork. What I found made my heart pound so loud I heard it in my ears. Back in the 1940s, Granite Ridge Mining Company didn't just get permission to dig. They bought full mineral and water rights to Cedar Hollow Lake, lake bottom, subsurface, and all usage related to extraction and access in perpetuity. When the company dissolved, those rights rolled into a holding company, then to a partner named Theodore Mercer, then to my father, then, in 1999, to me. I hadn't just inherited a piece of shore. I had inherited the entire lake bed and its water rights. While I was connecting that chain of ownership with attorney Victor Hall, Lydia was spiraling. She called the health department on my septic system, tried to report my old boat as abandoned, filed noise complaints on my outboard motor, gossiped to my part-time boss about how unstable I was. Betty dug into state records and discovered the Cedar Hollow Shores Association had never properly incorporated. On paper, Lydia's mighty HOA had the legal authority of a book club. Meanwhile, her own people were cracking. Gordon Mills, the retired banker she'd roped in as treasurer, started asking dangerous questions like, "Are we even allowed to do this?" Lydia doubled down. She put up a white vinyl fence across the path 3 elderly neighbors used on doctor's orders to walk to the water. She installed bank-grade cameras pointed at long-time fishing spots. She cooked up a petition with 47 signatures and booked a slot at the Redwood County Commissioners' meeting to demand formal control over our lake. What she didn't know was that in my folder, along with her bogus fines and my tax receipts, I now carried a deed that said, in plain English and old ink, "Cedar Hollow Lake, from shore to shore, belongs to the Mercer family." The night of the county meeting, the room felt like a low-budget courtroom drama, and a reality show rolled into one. Long-timers in worn jackets sat beside newcomers in golf course fleeces, and front row center was Lydia Caro, cream blazer flawless, binder in hand, smile sharp as barbed wire. Commissioner David Lang called her up first. She glided to the podium like she was accepting an award. Her PowerPoint lit up the screen, graphs about declining property values, photos of my tackle box labeled unauthorized commercial equipment, snapshots of me on the shore framed like crime scene evidence. She called Cedar Hollow Lake a community asset with no clear owner, described the Cedar Hollow Shores Association as the responsible majority, and asked the commissioners to grant her HOA formal authority to regulate access, fine trespassers, and restore order. Her people clapped. The local reporter Rachel Price scribbled notes. The photographer caught Lydia's triumphant profile. Then Commissioner Elena Morse said the words I'd been waiting for. "Does anyone wish to respond?" I stood, walked to the mic in my flannel and work boots, carrying one worn manila folder. Lydia leaned back, arms folded, certain she was about to watch me beg. "Thank you for hearing us," I started, voice calm. "And thank you, Ms. Caro, for caring so much about this lake. If I didn't pay attention, I might have missed something important too." A ripple of confusion. Lydia's smile twitched. She mentioned there was no clear owner. I continued, opening the folder so the county seal caught the light. "I'd like to clear that up." I laid my grandfather's 1958 deed on the commissioner's table. This document shows that Granite Ridge Mining Company sold full mineral and water rights for Cedar Hollow Lake to Theodore Mercer, my grandfather. Those rights passed to my father, and then to me. I've paid taxes on that lake for 23 years. What Ms. Caro calls HOA waters is my private property. The room inhaled as one. Lydia shot to her feet. "That's impossible. We researched this." Attorney Victor Hall rose from his seat. "Victor Hall, counsel for Mr. Mercer," he said smoothly. "We verified the chain of title from Granite Ridge to the Mercer family. We've confirmed lake bottom ownership and associated water use rights. We've also confirmed that Ms. Caro HOA has never filed proper incorporation papers and has been charging access fees for property it doesn't own. In the back, Karen Doyle stood. Commissioners, I can confirm from land records, Mr. Mercer's lake rights are recorded and his taxes are current. The HOA has no recorded authority over the lake. The county tax assessor added, Ms. Caro has never paid a cent of tax on lake footage. Her deed stops at the high water mark, like everyone else's. Up against that wall of paper and ink, Lydia's PowerPoint looked suddenly very small. Gordon Mills quietly announced, I resign as treasurer, and sat on his hands. Her supporters stared straight ahead, cheeks flushed, realizing they hadn't joined a responsible board, they'd joined a con. Sheriff Cole Ramirez, who'd come prepared to arrest me on Lydia's trespassing complaint, raised a hand. Just to be clear, he said, half laughing, you wanted me to arrest the guy for fishing on the lake he owns? The laugh that rolled through that room felt like a dam breaking. After a short recess, Commissioner Lang read the decision. The county recognized my ownership of the lake bottom and water rights. The Cedar Hollow Shores Association had no legal authority to regulate the lake or charge fees. All HOA-installed fences, cameras, and signs on my property had to be removed. Lydia walked out past the reporter's microphone, muttering, no comment, heels cracking on the tile like retreating gunfire. Her victory party at the community center went unused. Within weeks, the fence blocking the old path came down, the cameras vanished, the signs disappeared, and 3 families dropped out of the fake HOA. Betty put her gnomes back and added a new one holding a fishing rod she named Little Caleb. Lydia listed her house below market, fled Cedar Hollow, and took her drama somewhere with softer targets. We started over. Karen hosted a Know Your Property Rights night at the library. Victor volunteered time showing people how to read deeds and verify HOA claims. I wrote a simple agreement for the neighbors. The lake is mine on paper, but it's ours in spirit. No fees, no harassment, just respect, quiet hours, no trash. I put up a wooden sign at the launch. Mercer Family Lake, neighbors welcome. Fish kindly. Now, at dawn, I'm back where I belong, on my rock, coffee in hand, mist on the water, sometimes alone, sometimes with a neighbor sitting beside me in shared silence. The ache of losing Emily is still there, but it sits next to something new. The satisfaction of knowing we stood up, together, and told a bully no with receipts. And that leaves me with one question for you. When someone wraps greed in the language of community and tries to steal what's yours, your home, your peace, your lake, how far should you be allowed to go to defend it? And at what point does fighting back stop being revenge and start being justice?